Hello, full stack web developer, and welcome to Coding for All, the channel required to become a full stack web developer with practical applications and utilizing free resources. In the last video, we did advanced JavaScript and UI manipulation to make a cool website known as DrumKit, and today we are going with the part 3 and the final part of the same video. So in this video, we will be producing the sounds using our keyboard keys or buttons, you can say. Now, before we start our lecture formally, like the video and subscribe to the channel so we learn and grow together. Now, if we wanted our website to not just detect button presses but also detect keyboard key presses to activate the relevant drum, say if I press W, I should hear that sound. So how can I do that? Now, instead of adding an event listener to the listen for clicks that we did before, we need to add event listener as key press. And you can even look at and do some research on MDN docs where you can see. So now what we do, and as I want it for the whole document, that's the reason I'll write it as document dot add event listener, and over here I'll write key press, and sorry, then there will be a function, and it is going to be an anonymous function where I will create an alert message saying hello. So let me see how it goes now. Perfect. So it is working correctly. So now the next problem is, how do I figure out which key was pressed exactly? Now remember how we said that when we add an event listener to an element, then once the event happens, the element will trigger the function that's in the second parameter. So in this case, this is showing us an alert message. So instead of alert message, we can say something like console.log, and we can even create something as event, event, event. And over here, it must be console.log, and here should be console.log event. If I come here, refresh it, then I go for developer tools. If I press W, you see. So even if I click it, so now if you refresh and press any key, you can see like I have pressed W here. So if you expand this, you can see it actually gives you a whole bunch of information, including the key that was pressed to the trigger event, other things too. So now you can see whenever I press any key on the board, this even tells me which key was pressed. And that's kind of what we need in order to get our drum kit going, right? So now the key that we are most interested in is called key. Here's key. And this is the key value represented by the event. So which key on the keyboard got tapped essentially? And this is what we need in order to figure out which sound to play. So notice how we already have this switch statement in the past, which checks to see which key was passed in and respond by playing the relevant sound. Now the problem is that this is all inside the event listener for our button clicks, and we want it for the keyboard buttons. So as a challenge, I want you to create a function that takes a character and checks it against a switch statement in order to play correct sound. And then we are going to call it inside the event listener for the key press as well as event listener for our drum buttons. So pause the video and see if you can complete this challenge. So how did it go? I hope you tried. So what I have done here, I've just made a single function as a name of make sound, and it will take a key, and I have pasted all of its switch statement right inside the function. Instead, when it was here before, So I've just Control X, and over here it's with Control V. Now I'll take this from here to the top. So it will be relatively easy for me to do. There we are. And now instead of console, we can call the we are event dot key. And at last, what I'll be doing here, because I want to have sound with click as well as with keyboard buttons, so I will write make sound and then button inner HTML. Before I just refresh, I'm sorry, so Control S. Before I take you to the website, so now I have one section of my code which is all about detecting button press, and then I have another part of my code which is all about detecting keyboard press. And if a button was pressed, then I check the inner HTML of the button that got pressed and send that to make sound in order to play the relevant sound. And if a key press was detected instead, then I send the event.key, so the key property of the event. So now I can take you to the website. Control S again. Here we are. Refresh. Fingers crossed. Let me see. That's good. So the buttons, the click is working. It seems to work. And now I'm going to type in the characters, okay? Awesome, right? So in this lesson, we learn about how you can add event listener to detect keyboard strokes. And we use the same method, add event listener, but we added it into entire document instead of a specific button or specific element. And once that was detected, then this function gets called passing in the event that triggered the key press. And that event contains a property called key, which tells us which keyboard key was pressed, that you can see from here. Now, we will get onto this thing in future while working again in more details, but I would strongly suggest you to just repeat these concepts over and over again. Go with Google MD and Docs to get more clarity, and just pause the video, try it on your own, so it will be easier for you when now I will be moving forward towards the animation. So before you move towards animation, I would strongly suggest you to just digest these concepts so it become even better for you. Now, wouldn't it be nice to see the buttons flash when we click it or press the key that corresponds to it? That way, the user will know that they pressed the right key and they are getting the right sounds. Now, given that we want this animation to happen both when the button gets pressed as well as when a keyboard key gets pressed, then we probably would want to create a function, right? So let's create this new function called button animation, and we are going to need a parameter to be passed. So here we are. Let me close this. Okay, now like before, we can create something at the end, so the function can be button animate, and the parameter will be current key. So this is going to be our function. So in this case, we have added an event listener to all 8 round buttons. And then when one of them gets clicked, then it carries out this function. Inside this function, not only we want to make the sound using current key, but we also want to generate the button animation. So, first of all, what we need to do, we need to go up here. So we need to make everything work accordingly so it corresponds with the mouse click as well as with the keyboard. So here it will be button inner HTML. There we are. Now in this, so now in the case of our keyboard key press, we are also going to call that method button animation. And in this case, we are going to pass event.key. So for this reason, we will come down here. Now we will pass button animate, and we will have event.key as we did before. So remember that in our index.html we have 7 buttons which all have these classes assigned to them, and all 7 of them have the class term, but they each have a different class depending on what's the letter inside the button. So we can use the query our document. So we can say query selector for that. So let me show you how we can do that. We need to go back to our function where we will be adding all of that document dot query selector. Oh, I'm sorry, not query selector all. And so over here I'll put that dot and then plus current key as we did before. There it is. Okay, that's it. So now notice that we have used query selector. We have to say dot and then the name of the class. It is just same as in our CSS. So over here, if we want to query our document then that has a class of current key, then we have to write document.querySelector as you can see right in front of you. And we can add current key, but the current key is just a single character and we need to concatenate a full stop. That is the reason. So now that we have found the button that has the current key, let's assign this to a variable called, you can say, active button or anything like that. So I want you to try and think back to the lessons where we spoke about how we can add a class to an element using JavaScript, and you might have to think back a few lessons, but try and see if you can complete this challenge by adding the pressed class to the active button. So right now we are missing one thing, that is we want it to be effective when it's pressed. So for that reason we will mention our button dot class list dot add, and then over here we'll mention pressed. That is the value. Okay, now let me see if it goes good or not. So I have created one big error, and that is I haven't added the variable. I'm sorry. So this is our button, which is equal to this all. So we can write it here. Now just refresh. That's nice. Refresh it again. That's good. Just refresh it. Okay, still we are having one problem. this doesn't come back. We kind of wanted to have it this depressed mode, then come back to the original so it looks like an animation. Mm, But in this case, I can't generate that effect ever again if I click on one button. So how can I do that? Uh, well, in order to do this, we need this line of code to run, which you can surely see the timeout function on W3 schools. And so how can we add it? I would strongly suggest you to just go and Google W3 schools for this. Meanwhile, I can just show you how will it look like. So after it's done, it is, trust me, a direct copy paste of what you will see on W3 schools. So it's timeout, then it's function, and then within function, this is how it goes. Function, and that's it. Outside of this, there is going to be our button dot class, obviously like this. Our yes, button dot class list, very nice. Dot remove because we want them to that to be removed. What do we want to be removed? That pressed impact. Then after this, we put like here, and then we want 100. So it will be around 1 second. That is what we are mainly looking for. And control S. So this is, we are going to use anonymous function as we have done before, and now we are going to specify what we want to happen. So in this case, our active button class list to remove the press class so that it goes back to the original state. And the second parameter is the amount of time that we are going to wait. So I think as we have written here, so 0.1 second seems to work best. So now when we click the button, it will come back after 0.1 seconds, then remove class. That will be the function of the remove class. So let me see if it goes good. Refresh. Control this again. Refresh. Let me see. That's nice. What about this? Okay. That's pretty cool. So I hope you had fun with this module, building your own DrumKit website and in the process learning more about DOM and some of the more concepts of advanced JavaScript. Now next time we will be working on jQuery. So there is going to be much more fun. And that was all for today. So I hope you had great fun. Sorry, again, a little late, but I hope that you enjoyed the lecture and you will surely look forward to practice these concepts as many times as possible so you can enjoy this. Until then, we'll see you next week. Until then, good luck and bye, full stack web developer.